Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
Great to be with you on a Thursday morning. It's June 25th, 2026. A big thank you to the lovely Vanessa Den Hagarmo from Epiphany for filling in for me yesterday when Deacon Dom and I were in the beautiful eternal city of Rome, where I had the opportunity to speak to so many wonderful young people who are interested in Catholic media, Catholic communications. This is something to think about when you are donating to us, because what you are doing is you are evangelizing so many people in addition to yourself and your own family. Because not only because of our 600 affiliates across the country, and in fact that we're on Sirius for the radio programs, but you think about all of the other things that EWTN does in terms of evangelization with TV, online, everything. And Peter Gagnon, of course, mentions this quite a bit on our Inside Word on Fridays. But a program like this, the EWTN Academy, what you're doing when you support EWTN is that you are supporting future journalists, and that is so important. And so I did a talk yesterday all about presenting on radio and TV and new media, and had a wonderful time. And it's so beautifully organized. And a big thank you to the Rome Bureau, Andreas, the head of the Rome office, and of course Anthony Johnson, who's a great producer and videographer. And to all the students, let's keep them in our prayers as they move forward. Some have already graduated, some are still in school, but they all want to go into communications, especially Catholic communications. It was an honor to speak at the EWTN Summer Academy 2026. All right, so what's coming up in the program today? We are going to visit with Father Steve Arisman. He is the chair of the committee for the Shrine for Father Augustine Tolton, the first African-American priest. What a story this man has in terms of, at least Father Augustus, both do, but it's more specifically Father Augustine Tolton's story, what he endured and how much he loved the Lord and the church. And this is going to be a great discussion. We sat down with him a couple of weeks ago, and I thought as we are moving toward our celebration of 250 years of this country, this is a great story about the lessons we needed to learn in terms of the way we treat people. And this was a beautiful situation in terms of he was able, thanks be to God, to become a priest, but still did endure a lot of challenges, but never gave up. And basically, of course, won the hearts of so many people and helped so many people on their way to salvation. So we'll be talking with Father Stephen about the Shrine of Augustine Tolton in Quincy. And then we're going to finish up the program with Camille Pauley. She's a co-founder of Healing the Culture. She works directly with the amazing Father Robert Spitzer. And this is an amazing ministry. And they've expanded their digital access to their programs, which are fabulous. And it's part of a mission to form audiences committed to protecting the dignity of every human life. One of the coolest tools that they have on the Healing the Culture website, and we'll give you all the details when you hear the interview with Camille. They have these 90-second testimonies about very specific statements that people just parrot, following in the footsteps of the secular media and these pro-abortion type folks who just say, well, you know, woman's right to choose or reproductive health. How do you respond to various statements, which are very poorly formed in terms of facts, but of course people say them, and sometimes it can catch you thinking, well, maybe I need to have a better answer. Well, they do on this website of Healing the Culture. And then hour number 2, we're spending the entire time with, after the news and weather, of course, with Dr. John Cuddeback. I had to have him back on, no pun intended, regarding his wonderful book that he's written all about families getting back to living together and being together. So we're going to dive into that, and we'll talk about a couple of different issues. So I think you're going to enjoy that, the interview with Dr. John Cuddeback in hour number 2. Right now on a Thursday morning, June 25th, this first week of summer 2026, let's check the weather and the news for you. According to the National Weather Service, severe weather and flooding threats continuing for portions of the central U.S. through today, focusing from the central high plains to the mid-Mississippi Valley. Hot and dry conditions, meanwhile, fueling fire weather concerns for the Intermountain West, and dry thunderstorms may spark additional wildfires. And then there's dangerous heat building across the southern part of the U.S. into tomorrow and the weekend. Right now on a Thursday morning, let's check the news here on EWTN. Natalie Migliore reports that Venezuela is still assessing all the damage after being hit by not one but two massive earthquakes, with officials estimating thousands of people could be dead.
The U.S. Geological Survey says Venezuela was struck by 2 quakes, with the first shock reported as a 7.1 magnitude, striking less than a minute before a shock of a magnitude of 7.5. The agency warns disaster is likely widespread, especially after videos from the public show buildings in Caracas collapsing and extensive damage at the main airport. Officials are warning of aftershocks that normally follow earthquakes, urging caution around remaining structures that could have been damaged. I'm Natalie Migliori.
And another major earthquake, as Mark Mayfield tells us, in another part of the world.
The 6.9 magnitude quake struck this morning in northern Japan off the coast of Fuji. Strong tremors were felt throughout the region, disrupting bullet train services. Local reports say at least 4 people were injured by the quake, which knocked groceries off store shelves and caused minor damage to some buildings. No tsunami warnings have been issued so far. I'm Mark Mayfield.
President Trump, meanwhile, says the U.S. is ready and willing to help after the pair of earthquakes. In a post on Truth Social, the president saying he's instructed all agencies of our government to get ready to move quickly. A U.S. official also saying the country will send search and rescue teams and humanitarian supplies. And Tammy Trujillo reports that there's stress along the San Andreas fault system, and it's at a 1,000-year high.
That's according to new research from the University of Hawaii. It means that the pressure that causes earthquakes near the fault is building. Despite this, the lead researcher stresses there's no reason to be more concerned, as stress on the fault was already high and the fault's been overdue for an earthquake for a long time. This comes as a pair of powerful earthquakes struck Venezuela Wednesday, with officials estimating there's a high number of casualties and extensive damage. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
For the last 12 years, peace around the world has deteriorated. More countries are engaged in external conflicts. The number of drone attacks has increased over 11,500% between 2018 and 2025. And the number of people killed in domestic fighting has seen a 6-fold rise since 2007. That's according to information coming from the Global Peace Index. Part of the Institute for Economics and Peace founder and executive chair Steve Kalila created the index to give people, governments, and countries the information they need to concretely work for peace in the world. Vatican News is reporting it first launched back in 2007, the Global Peace Index, as an important piece of research in the world regarding the measure of global peacefulness. It brings 3 categories together to create the complete index: militarization, ongoing conflicts, and international safety and security. The Senate following the House and passing the War Powers Resolution on Iran, marking the first time both chambers of Congress approved such a measure. Speaking shortly after the vote, correspondent Mitch McCann says passage is mostly symbolic because it really doesn't carry the force of law.
The Republican Senator Jim Risch, who is also the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, said this evening that whatever happens with this, it's going to have no effect. And he said Mr. Trump will not pay any attention to it. At the same time, it could be politically effective in building more pressure on the administration.
The resolution seeks to end the Iran conflict without Congress declaring war or authorizing the use of military force. The Senate vote 50-48, with 4 Republicans, Lisa Murkowski, Kentucky's Rand Paul, Susan Collins, and Bill Cassidy joining the majority of Democrats. And Liz Warner tells us the UN is evacuating thousands of sailors now stranded in the Strait of Hormuz.
The UN's International Maritime Organization releasing a statement Tuesday saying it's begun evacuating more than 11,000 sailors who've been stuck in the waterway since the U.S. and Israel began their attacks on Iran in February. The IMO reports there are between 500 and 600 ships stranded. The statement also says the evacuations are being carried out in close cooperation with the U.S., Iran, and other coastal states in the region. It also noted the organization has secured the necessary safety guarantees and has thoroughly verified the conditions for safe navigation. In New York, I'm Liz Warner.
At the audience yesterday, Pope Leo again focusing on the importance of the Eucharist during his message in St. Peter's Square as he continued his catechesis series on the Second Vatican Council and its 1963 dogmatic constitution on the sacred liturgy. He said this sacred mystery is described in the text's 2nd chapter as a sacrament of love, a sign of unity, a bond of charity, a paschal banquet in which Christ is received, the soul is filled with grace, and the pledge of future glory is given to us. He also recorded the Constitution's emphasis on the faithful not being passive spectators at Mass, but being encouraged to offer themselves in union with Jesus Christ. Oregon's Attorney General announcing Medicaid fraud charges against 3 people, the same day the U.S. Justice Department announced similar charges against 455 people.
Combating Medicaid fraud is about fighting for working families, protecting vulnerable Oregonians, and holding bad actors accountable when they take advantage of taxpayer dollars.
That's AG Dan Rayfield, who says a Beaverton man in Oregon is accused of housing assistance fraud, another woman charged with Medicaid billing fraud in the state, and a third woman is charged with making personal purchases with a government credit card. Since 2010, Oregon's Medical Fraud Control Unit has convicted 348 people. President Trump highlighting the U.S. economy in the run-up to the 2026 midterms in a speech yesterday in Pennsylvania, or earlier this week in Pennsylvania. White House correspondent John Decker was with the president earlier this week on Tuesday and says Trump will be holding more of these types of events between now and November.
Affordability is the number one issue for voters right now. We see this in primary after primary, and it's likely going to be the top issue for voters heading into the midterm elections.
In battleground Pennsylvania, the president touting his economic policies, including his tariff plan, aimed to get companies to build factories in the U.S. And President Trump will be returning to Pennsylvania next month. Republican Senator Dave McCormick announcing Trump will be attending the Pennsylvania Defense and Innovation Summit of the U.S. Army War College on July 15th. McCormick also saying leaders from defense, technology, finance, and government are expected to attend the event. Monica Nelson says authorities in Pima County in Arizona are reportedly questioning whether they made a critical mistake in searching for missing Arizona woman Nancy Guthrie.
Investigators sent just $152 of a $4 million crypto ransom, hoping the kidnappers would move the funds and reveal their location. But months later, the strategy hasn't paid off. A joint task force is still chasing digital trails through layers of proxy servers, and several persons of interest have been detained and released. With DNA leads stalling, the case is now entering its 5th month with no real breakthrough. I'm Monica Nelson.
And the Department of Justice is gearing up to sue California over a new gun law.
The Department of Justice says California better be ready for a fight if they enforce a new law that bans the commercial sale of Glock-style handguns after July 1st. The feds say the law violates the Second Amendment. Several gun rights groups are also planning to sue. The law bans the sale of what's being called machine gun convertible pistols, which are basically any semi-automatic handgun. If the law is enforced and you have one, you can keep it, and sales to law enforcement and military are exempt. I'm Jason Campadonia.
And finally, in our newscast on a Thursday morning, President Trump is hosting the kickoff celebration of the Great American State Fair. Speaking from the National Mall yesterday, Trump touting the virtues of the U.S. and declared that America is back.
There has never been anything like the United States of America, and together we are making it bigger and better and stronger and far more exceptional than ever before.
Folks flocking to the mall for the event that featured a series of military flyovers, the U.S. Army and Marine Corps Band, singer Lee Greenwood, and a gigantic Ferris wheel. It was billed as a patriotic opening ceremony to launch Freedom's 250th first-of-its-kind World's Fair. It's a Thursday morning. Thanks for tuning in to EWTN's Catholic Connection, and we'll be right back. Minutes past the hour. Welcome back, Catholic Connection. We're having a great day. We appreciate your listenership. Father Arisman is with us. He is the chair of the committee for the Shrine of Father Augustine Tolton, and he's also pastor of St. Francis Solanus Parish in Quincy, Illinois. Father, this is very exciting. First of all, bring us up to date on the Shrine, what's happening with it, and thanks for joining us, by the way. Appreciate it.
It's great to be here, Teresa. This is so wonderful. The great opportunity here is that we get to recognize what we believe to be a saint, this wonderful man who's lived such a saintly life and has really epitomized not only the gift of perseverance in the faith, but also perseverance in the great rejection that he received, but he did so with great love. And so the Shrine is an opportunity that we are are getting to then tell his story to the world, I think, a little bit more. He's gotten out there. A lot of people actually have heard of Father Tolton, and so we're really excited to just continue to grow that message of his life and love of the Lord and of the faith. So on April...
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to ask you to tell our
Sorry.
listeners just a little bit about him. I know probably most of our listeners, because they're faithful folks, but just a little background about why he's so important. And actually coming into also our 250th anniversary in terms of, to the church and so many people who struggled in the faith to make a difference. Just give us a little bit of background about him, if you could, Father.
That is wonderful. Yeah, he was born in Brush Creek, Missouri in 1854, and was born into slavery and was escaped slavery into Quincy, and in Quincy he found quite the welcome. He had rejection by some, but welcome by many, especially at St. Peter's Church with Father Peter McGeer. Father Peter McGeer put him in his school, and many people, he always said he felt very safe in that school and felt very at home there. In serving Mass daily and before school and before work, as he worked in a tobacco plant, even as a little kid, he would go to daily Mass and he would serve, and it's where his priestly vocation was fostered and founded. They had trouble getting him into a seminary in the United States, and so he arrived in the Eternal City in Rome at the age of 26, and was nicknamed Good Father Gus from the U.S. So he was ordained April 24th of 1886 in Rome, and then the Pope and the cardinal that was in charge of the missions, because he was studying for the missions, sent him back to the United States and told us that it's the most enlightened country in the world, so they need to show us. And he came back and he served in Quincy, and he was pastor of St. Joseph's Church for the black congregation that they had set up there. And he served there until he served in Chicago at St. Monica's Church for some time, and he died in 1897 at the age of 43 from heat stroke, taking care of his people, taking the communion to the sick and the homebound. And so Father Tolton lived a life of great struggle. I mean, he was the first recognized black priest in the United States, born into slavery, and escaped all of that into freedom, and not only into freedom, but into living out the faith even more and more, and being such a witness to the faith then. He was a dynamic preacher. People loved him. And in fact, one of the things that got him such ire from other people was the fact that he had both white and black Catholics coming to his congregation. And priests don't like losing people to other people anyway, but especially at that time, losing white congregants to a black pastor was really upsetting. Even the Protestant community rejected him. In black Protestant community rejected him in many ways because they didn't want their kids in a Catholic school. And so, in all of this, he encountered a lot of difficulties in his life, but he always encountered it with such love, such perseverance, and such unifying gift of faith. So, I think that kind of sums up his story in a short way. But it's something that is so powerful and inspiring if you look into his life. One of the things I tell people all the time is if you get to know Good Father Gus, he will show up in your life over and over and over again. And he's a great intercessor. So, really turn to him in your time of need, especially if you're looking for a miracle in your life. We need those miracles to continue to move his cause for canonization forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great story, though, of perseverance, when he knew what his vocation was, and he persevered and accepted so much suffering and discrimination so lovingly. Okay, the shrine. Fill us in on the shrine. What's happening with that?
So April 29th, we launched our event to tell the world that we're creating a shrine for Father Tolton. So we've had a lot of preparation for that event, and now we're actually in the stages of looking to create a capital campaign that will be launching sometime later in the summer, early fall, and really looking forward to starting that process and that work. So there's a lot of work to do to get his story out there and to look for donors that will help to support this shrine. It's going to take a national effort. It's going to be a lot more than just Quincy. Quincy is a very generous community and a very wonderful community, and Father Gus knew that very well as he received such great support. Even after he left from the Quincy community to serve in Chicago, he still received great support from the Quincy community. But at the same time, this is a big endeavor. So we're taking the building of St. Boniface Church in downtown Quincy, And it's the first parish in Quincy. And it also is where it's on the site. It's not the exact church because the church that Father Gus said his first Mass in burned down. And so they built a new church, and it's in this church in downtown Quincy, but it's on the site of where Father Tolton said his first Mass that we're creating the shrine. But St. Boniface has become in disrepair as it was closed as a parish in 2005, 2006. And so it's been used up until about 2010, but then it's sat vacant. And you know how that happens to buildings then,
right?
What happens quickly. And so we've got a lot of work to do on the building itself to make it usable for the shrine. So that's going to probably need about $6 to $7 million just to put the building back together. But it was made a landmark status by the city of Quincy, and we're actually now working to make it a national status of landmark status. But with that, we're trying to renew this idea and this wonderful gift of faith around Father Tolton. It is also then, because it's a landmark, it's a unique structure. It's got the architect was John Benya, and built in 1962, and it's a mid-century modern church, and it's one of the only structures of John Benya that's still around. So because of that, it's been put on the landmark status, and so it also is an architectural wonder in the state of Illinois. So because of that, we've got a lot of work to do to keep that church up and to make it usable again. But then from there, we want to look to much more than just that. We want to create a pilgrimage experience. So
I was going to say, that would be really cool to have a pilgrimage experience, yeah.
Correct. We're going to look to buy like the shrine, the site of his church that he was pastor, St. Joseph's Church, and maybe put some kind of landmark or something there. We would like to obviously buy the school back that was connected to the parish for so long. We need to buy the rectory back. There's a lot of things that we need to do, but then there's a lot more opportunities that we can do, and especially we're open to what donors have as suggestions as we go forward too, because we're always open to that gift of what donors can bring to the experience of looking to planning. But there's a lot of opportunities. He's buried here in Quincy, and we would like to do something with the gravesite there. In fact, fun fact, Pope Leo has some great aunts that are buried in the same cemetery as.
Oh my goodness! So that could be part of the pilgrimage, maybe too.
Exactly.
The papal connection. Yeah.
So many wonderful things to do, but again, it takes a lot. But then it also won't be a parish; it'll be a shrine. So it will definitely need an endowment to be able to keep it going into the future. And so when we're looking at this is a pretty hefty set of millions that we're looking for. And so it really will take a national appeal. So we're looking for donors, we're looking for people interested in this cause, and we're looking for people interested in helping to make the shrine happen. And they can always find more information at www.toltonshrine.org. And when they go there, and it's TOLTON, shrine.org, when they go there, they can find more information about Father Gus. They can find more information about the wonderful gift of what we're doing with the shrine. But there's a link there that they can sign up just to receive updates as we move forward.
Well, there's also a link. I'm looking. Make a gift in
that.
support of the shrine. Father, we have to go, but let me give the website one more time: toltonshrine.org. It's a beautiful website. You'll learn about the shrine, the story, the cause. There's a prayer, frequently asked questions, and also don't forget, as Father said, you can make a gift of support of the shrine right there on toltonshrine.org. Father Arisman, thank you so much. We'll be right back. Greatly appreciate your listenership here at EWTN Catholic Radio. Check out all of our great material at EWTN.com. Great to have Camille Pauley back with us. She's a co-founder of Hearing the Culture. So many things to discuss, but first, Camille, thanks for joining us, and congrats on your growing efforts to help people understand the dignity of the human person and to help people understand how to explain the beauty of life in particular. So let's talk first of all, for folks who aren't familiar, I know many are, but just in case there's someone not familiar with Healing the Culture, tell us about the organization and why and how you founded it, or co-founded. You're the co-founder. So how did that begin?
Sure. Good morning, Teresa. It's good to talk to you again.
Good morning.
So Healing the Culture is the brainchild of Father Robert Spitzer, and he really wanted something that helps people understand
I know
the reasons.
him.
But you know him? That's so weird. I know him too. Yeah, he's a great
Amazing.
guy.
Yep.
He happens to be my boss, and he, back in 1993 or 92, he really wanted to create something where people understood why we're pro-life, not just that we're pro-life. Not just what we believe, but why. And so he created this as a philosophical program to help people better understand what is real happiness and what is real freedom and what is a right and what does it mean and what responsibilities does that call forth from you. And if you don't follow those principles of responsibility, how it makes your life much more miserable, and you're really living beneath yourself and aiming at things that are not worthy of you. And so it grew into this whole mission, this whole organization, and now a whole movement among many other organizations we partner with to teach people a philosophy of human life that they've never learned, that they don't learn in school anymore and should. So that's what we do.
And you're expanding, and I wanted to bring you on today to talk about that. Let's talk about how you're expanding, where, and first of all, how people can get information.
Sure. So our website is healingtheculture.org. And we've just launched a brand new website. It's way more useful, more user-friendly than it has been before. And the reason why we launched a new website was because most of our materials now are video-oriented and social media-oriented. And so we've got short snippets, we've got longer snippets, we've got deep dives, we've got simple explanations of various issues. And so we have a new platform now that makes it really user-friendly for people to get on and use the curriculum, the content that we have, in a personal setting, with your kids, in a classroom, as research for a paper you're doing, or showing in a religious education program, in a youth group, sharing with your friends. So it's a new program that I think gives people the benefit of being able to decide if I've got 90 seconds to listen to the answer to a question I have, or if I want a deeper dive. So that's at healingtheculture.org. And our growth has been phenomenal because of the use of social media. Social media has so many tools now. There's a lot of discussion about AI, and I love the Pope's new encyclical on that.
Yep.
There's been some great articles in First Things, too, about the good use of AI and the very worrisome uses of AI. We put some of those technologies to use in good ways to really target identifying where is our audience. We can do deep dives into where are the people we're trying to reach with certain pro-life messages. Where are they right now? And we could track them and find out, where are they, when, at what times of day, what are they paying attention to, and what's stopping their scroll. And then we can mimic that, the look and feel, get people to stop the scroll and then have them engage in our videos. And we've seen a 5,000% increase in the number of people who are watching our videos, and a similar increase, about 3,000% increase in the people who are engaging in our content. For better or for worse, you get the meanies, and then you get the people who really are asking questions authentically because they want to know what you think, and they really care about what they believe. So it's these tools have been very helpful to us, and people who use social media probably see a lot more of us.
Even if they are going on there maybe to criticize, they can't help ignore the fact, and I know you and Father talk about this, I'm sure, because they're still on the website, and who knows what they're going to see that could possibly plant a seed, right?
Yes, we have a lot of internal conversations about that. We hired a person whose whole job is to engage online with the people who make comments, and she's actually had some success in taking some of the cruelest statements, people who make these horrendous statements, and kind of hooking them into a conversation where they're actually asking questions, and then she'll answer it, and then they respond. So it's not just them throwing garbage at us, but you'll get some of these people who you can engage in a dialogue that gets them thinking, and that's what you want. You want them seeing that this is a rational organization, this is a rational movement, and not just that, it's empathetic, and not just that, it's just, and they see all this wrapped into a conversation with a real human being, and it's just a great way to reach Gen Z and younger, what is it, Gen Alpha kids coming up now. But it's just really, really great way to reach them and get them engaged. And then you pull them in to the organizational content, and then they can explore a lot more of what we do and who we are.
Absolutely. We're talking with Camille Pauley, the co-founder of Healing the Culture, the website. It's fantastic. healingtheculture.org. Do you find that your Truth in 90 Seconds, that section, Camille, is among the most popular on the website? Because 90 seconds, to be able to do that is phenomenal.
Yeah, we've got several million views just on that series. And it's like the subject, like the title mentions, we teach pro-life issues in 90-second little segments. I think we have like 30 or 32 of them up now. We do one every month. We've got everything from life of the mother, rape and incest, it's my body, it's my choice, let's agree to disagree, all these different issues people bring up. What about disabilities? We even kind of touch on the issue of vaccines, just on the abortion aspect of vaccines. So, we get into all these really hot button issues, and the popularity of 90 seconds is that obviously people don't want to spend, a lot of people who are in our target don't want to spend half an hour trying to understand what you think about a certain issue, but they will give you 90 seconds.
Right.
And then what we find is they'll watch one and they'll go, well, that's kind of interesting, and then they'll watch another, and then they'll watch another, and then before you know it, they're commenting on our YouTube channel. And so it's more like a hook. There's only so much you can do in 90 seconds, right? I'm not going to give you the whole pro-life philosophy in 90 seconds, but I can give you a good argument that makes you go, what? I thought these people were crazy, or I thought these people didn't have good arguments. So that's our most popular video series.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And again, I think you don't have to get into too much detail. People, their attention span, I mean, you've got a Father Spitzer and someone like you. You're both so well educated and so well versed, but you are well aware that people only can take in so much information, right?
Well, I can only take in so much information.
Yeah, me too.
So these 2 nice things are great for me.
Yeah. Yep.
But you're right. There's a glut of information out there right now. And they're not, even if they gave me 30 minutes, the way kids' brains are wired now, most of them are not going to be able to latch on to most of what you're saying in a 30-minute discussion, a talk, unless it's a discussion. If I can do a Socratic dialogue with somebody, which is what we do in classes, then they'll give you an hour. They'll stay for a long time because you're engaging their brain. But most of what they're learning is didactic. They're just being fed, and so they don't have that attention, even in classrooms. The studies are now showing in classrooms, kids don't, when I was a kid, I don't know if this was true with you, Teresa, but when I was a kid in classrooms, you had a 1-hour class. And you sat there for 1 hour and you learned. Yeah, they don't do that anymore. In most classrooms, you've got these little segments, and then you move on to another topic, and then a little segment of that, and you move on because these kids can't hold their attention span for that long.
Wow.
So, yeah, so if they can't do 90 seconds, we got a real problem, but I think it's working.
Yeah. When we come back, we have to take a break in a little bit, but I want to talk about the importance of doing this with love, and I know that you guys are experts at that. And I was very, very heartbroken by that story that broke not too long ago, very recently, of that young couple, that influencer couple, and they found out that their baby was, or they think, it wasn't even 100%, but the baby possibly had Down syndrome. And they ended up terminating, and the reactions, especially from Christians. Yeah, let's talk about that when we come back. HealingTheCulture.org with co-founder Camille Pauley. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to Catholic Connection. Great to have Camille Pauley on with us yet again. She's a co-founder of Healing the Culture. Beautiful website, important website in helping us understand the dignity of the human person. And of course, also behind it is the amazing Father Robert Spitzer, also from EWTN, and of course the Magnus Center, and so many wonderful books and lectures and teachings. He's just phenomenal, and so is Camille. Talking during the break, Camille, about, and even going into this next segment, about the importance of expressing ourselves with love, which doesn't mean we have to minimize our argument, not speak truth. But I was referring, and we were discussing a very horrific story that's been in the news a lot lately about that young couple, the married couple who are big influencers online, and they were excited to announce that they're expecting their baby, and then they come to find out that after they did some testing that apparently the baby had Down syndrome, and so they decided to have an abortion. And there was a huge outpouring of, I guess, positive and negative. And they claim, and so did a couple of other outlets, say that the Christian people were among the worst and the most horrific in terms of their comments. Now, there were, I'm sure, some people who were mean. I'm sure there were other people, and I know people who weighed in on it and were very kind and offered them some resources. But that just, I think, begs a question, and to remind ourselves, is it not important for us to let them know, as that old Catholic hymn used to say, we are Christians by our love?
Well, short answer is yes. That is true. This was the YouTuber Jesse Ridgway. And I think he has like 4 million subscribers.
Yeah.
And first thing I have to say is that's not the pro-life movement. I mean, I've been in this movement for over 30 years, and I have very rarely, you can count it on probably one hand, the number of times that I have ever encountered somebody who is vicious in their conversation about people who are pro-choice or who have had abortions. That's just very uncommon. And so, you got to ask yourself, who are these people who are making these kinds of comments? It's not the pro-life movement. Whoever these people are don't have the heart of the pro-life movement and don't understand what it is that we stand for and who we are. But also, when you are online, people say things without realizing how it's going to sound to somebody else as well, and it can be interpreted as somebody really condemning you when you're already hurting, when you've already been through an abortion, and when you're already, everybody who has an abortion has a heart. God gave us all a heart, and they're already going through some kind of a grief and maybe even some shame. So yeah, you need to treat the other with love. At the same time, you need to treat them with truth as well, because truth is love. And I will tell you, this story really hit me hard because I experienced the exact same thing as Jesse Ridgway did. I was given a prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome for Juliet, my daughter, who, by the way, does not have Down syndrome. And the way they phrase it, the way the medical establishment phrases it, makes you think that you are going to have not only a child with Down syndrome, but a messed up life, and everything's going to be horrible. And they don't ask you, how can we help you? They ask you, what would you like us to do about this? So the whole medical institution is geared towards telling you you're going to have a Down syndrome child, which is not true. He even mentioned this wasn't a positive diagnosis. The child was likely to have Down syndrome. I know that test. I know what they do. There's a certain percentage where you hit certain key points in your age, certain things they're looking for in the child. Or they'll say you'll have a certain possibility of have a certain probability of having a kid with Down syndrome, and if it's over a certain probability, they call that positive diagnosis. And so, not only are you being deceived about your child may or actually may not have Down syndrome, but you're also being pressured. We got the phone call, with the lady saying, "We'd like you to go through genetic counseling so you can decide what you want to do." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean what I want to do?" And she says, "Well, whether or not you want to continue the pregnancy." And I said, "So you mean if I decide to love my child no matter what kind of disability she may have, do I need this genetic counseling?" And she was like, "Well, no." And she hung up because it was very awkward for her, But Jesse Ridgway probably didn't have that background of 30 years of, or 20 years at that time of, pro-life advocacy. And so he's being pressured into this, and then he gets all this pressure online. And that's going to hurt and be hard. But you got to teach people the truth. It is not a nightmare, which is what he called it, an objective nightmare to have a child with Down syndrome.
He said, "I didn't sign up for this."
Beautiful.
That was very harsh. He said, "I didn't sign. This is not what I signed up for." And I thought, okay, well, God forbid what happens if you have a baby. The baby's fine, God willing, and yet later in life, the baby is diagnosed with something as the child gets over. So you didn't sign up for that either.
None of us sign. Yeah, and that's kind of the problem, is this whole attitude that we sign up for everything. When we take life in terms of, I'm going to sign up for this, I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to do it my
choice.
Way. Your life is very small. Yeah, your life is not bigger and more free. It's very small because you're not open to great possibilities that God has for your life. And that's kind of the message we need to be teaching people. We did a video on success. People think that success is just, me deciding to do it my way and do whatever I want. And they don't see success as me entering into an opportunity for love and goodness and mystery and sacrifice and surrender and generosity when I'm hit with circumstances that I didn't sign up for. That's the meaning of love, right? That's what life is all about. And that's the message the pro-life movement should be teaching. It should be encouraging, not condemning.
Yeah. And with that in mind, in terms of being kind and loving, there is unfortunately a movement within the pro-life movement itself, which it just really, to me, seems so counterproductive, where people want to charge or make the women who've had the abortions or having abortions pay legally. I'm not talking about financially. Basically, treat them as criminals.
Yep, that is right. It's a movement. It started few years ago, and it's really picked up a lot of steam. There are big names in the pro-life movement who support this, and unfortunately a whole lot of kids are falling for it. It's this idea that the woman has committed a murder. She should be punished as any other person who commits a murder. It's a matter of justice, is what they say. And I have so much to say about this. We actually are doing a video on this soon, but I have so much to say about this, we don't even have time. The biggest problem with this movement is that they're totally disconnected from what's really happening when they make this justice argument. It isn't true that it is not a matter of justice to throw the woman in prison. Teresa, look at what you've got. We've known this as a movement for 40 years. Everybody knows this. This is why we're about the mother and the child. Because you've got a woman who, in the vast majority of cases, statistics from the abortion movement itself bears this out. From the secular, surveying organizations bears this out. You've got a woman who, in over 70% of the cases, has been pressured to have an abortion and doesn't even want one. She's been told by the society her whole entire life that what's going to make you happy, successful, and have a high quality of life is a career. Do something with yourself. So now she's going to have to drop out of school, she thinks. She's going to be fired from her career. She's not going to be able to climb the ladder of success. And the whole culture has told us this is how you define who you are. Suddenly she's pregnant, and now she's got everybody telling her, you're going to lose your life. Your life is going to be ruined. Your choices are ruined. You're going to lose your boyfriend. You're going to have to drop out of school. And then she's got a whole movement of industries, the education industry, the medical industry, right? The popular entertainment industry, music industry, media, film, fashion, business. Everybody's telling her abortion is a sacrament. It's your way out. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a baby. It will save your life. You're a hero if you do it. So out of fear, she goes against her basic instinct. Out of pressure, out of being abandoned by her boyfriend in most cases, she goes and gets an abortion. And we're going to put her in jail?
Mm-hmm.
I look at that and I say, what are you thinking? This is not just a matter of this is not compassionate. This isn't just. The whole culture is carved out to force her into this mentality that abortion is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she's
also, if they're going
already.
after, so how do they want to see this adjudicated, basically? Because you have millions upon millions of abortions that have taken place since 1973 and even before. So how you're going to go after the women who had an abortion 5 years ago, 10 years ago? How is that just? So some people are going to get arrested and charged and some others aren't?
Well, it's curious that some of the biggest names who are supporting this are women who have had abortions and now have turned pro-life. And I don't see them standing in line saying, throw me in jail because I did this too. I just, there's that kind of angle to it as well. And I just really caution people I understand the attraction. It's murder. We should treat them the same. The baby deserves justice. I understand that. But don't just, knee-jerk into this logical progression that really lacks the finer points. Because there's a whole host of issues you're going to cause. If you start trying to push this in pro-life states, like I live in South Dakota, we're a pro-life state. We're the best pro-life state in the country. Abortions are illegal here, except to save the life of the mother. And you try to push something that says, but we should throw the woman in prison now. We're going to change overnight, and you're going to save no babies. You're going to have people saying, I'm not voting for that. We better make it legal then if you're going to put them in jail because it's illegal. I mean, that's the culture we live in. We're not in a culture where politically people are going to buy that. So there's also the practical arguments that this is causing a lot of damage to the pro-life movement, a lot.
Well, those people who are prominent and have changed their minds that may have even had an abortion before, they know all the information that you and I are sharing this morning. They know it well. They know in terms, because not only did they personally experience it, but if they're out there as pro-life speakers, the information is at hand in terms of what the majority of women go through. The majority of women are not, dancing into an abortion facility. The majority of them are pressured. They met choice, air quotes, because they feel they have no choice. And
this
they
is
know this.
Statistical fact. Yeah,
70%
of women who've had an abortion self-identified that they were coerced and didn't want it in the first place.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to throw them in jail. That makes sense. Yeah, we really need that right now. I want to play one of your clips because they're so well done. I just want to give people a taste of it and encourage them to go to the website, healingtheculture.org. We're going to play the one that's up first on the website, Camille. Is abortion, and that's kind of what we were just talking about. Is abortion necessary for success? Roll it, Richard, please.
I'm Camille Pauley with Healing the Culture. When you hear people tell you that abortion increases human flourishing, they're usually talking about something that philosophers call happiness level 2. The Greeks called this kind of happiness ego. In Latin, it's felix. We can refer to it as the ego high. It's the kind of happiness that comes from personal independence, success, achievements, winning, power, control, popularity, and superiority. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with experiencing happiness from things like success and achievement, or even from having power or being popular. But wise people warn us that living for level 2 as our dominant identity, as if it were what makes life worth living, will eventually cause an extreme and intense crisis in the human soul. Why? Well, because you were made for more than self-advancement. You were made for love. When we sacrifice other people in order to get ahead or to increase our own opportunities for control or independence or achievement, success or recognition in the eyes of the world, we're actually radically underliving our lives. Abortion advocates have convinced us that sacrificing our own children through abortion will make us happier. They are wrong. What makes human beings truly happy is giving ourselves away in love, compassion, and goodness to the people who need us the most, especially our own children.
That's so well done. And I love the fact that it's your delivery is factual, firm, but still very appealing. I don't feel like you're lecturing me or talking down to me.
Yeah, thank you. I have an incredible team that has worked really hard on taking Father Spitzer and sort of digesting him down into 90 seconds.
Yeah, good luck with that. How long does that take? I mean, that man is he's so brilliant. His brain is so big.
That's interesting. To prepare a 90-second video can take literally 2 months.
Yeah.
When you're trying to get it down into that short amount of time. And sometimes we'll hear pro-lifers say, well, that's not an effective approach because you're talking to people who don't believe it's the baby, and so you're not going to have an impact on them because they don't believe they're sacrificing a child. Well, that's not what the statistics show, and that's not what my experience show. People know this is a baby. They convince themselves that it's not in order to do what they already know is wrong. So yes, you do have to bring up the biology, the philosophy about this is a human person, this is
but you can't do it all at once. You have to first engage them, which is what you're doing. And by the way, I love the way you talked about the ego, because I always, when I give my testimony, I always talk about ego being an acronym, easing God out, which is exactly what happens. And as you said in your video clip there, so much information, research from secular entities shows that when we only focus on self, we're miserable. We have to have you back on. Fantastic. Please give Father a big hug from me. You're both doing such great work. HealingTheCulture.org. Check it out. Great stuff. We'll be right back. Hope you're having a great day. It's a Thursday morning. Can you believe we're almost to the weekend already? Wow. And then, gosh, a week from tomorrow will be Friday the 3rd and the 4th of July weekend. Time is flying by way, way too quickly. But we're having fun, and we're learning a lot. I know I am. Every single day, I learn so much more because the Catholic Church is just this endless well of beautiful, beautiful knowledge. It's so deep. And, of course, the truth. It's always, always great to be able to learn more with these wonderful guests, including Camille Pauley. Check out that website, Healing the Culture, and take a look at those 90-second videos that Camille has done. They're fantastic, and they're so simple. Anyone can understand them. You don't have to be a theologian. They're not super complicated, but they give you basic, solid, quick responses in terms of these statements that people repeat and parrot without even thinking about some of these hot-button issues. So it's a great resource. Healing the Culture is wonderful. Camille Pauley was our guest this past hour. Okay. Our guest next hour, as I mentioned earlier, will be Dr. John Cuddeback. We're revisiting this interview I did with him because I think it's so, and how do I want to put it? I think it's so insightful and so helpful for families. If you remember earlier this week, I had a 2-cent segment, if you were listening in the second hour on EWTN Radio Extra, all about this new study showing that parents are on their devices during mealtime more than their children. And this is part of the problem. Dr. John says in his latest book, all about families coming together. We may be together, but we're alone and we're disconnected, and we need to get back to the basics. And we'll discuss with him next hour. More Catholic Connection coming your way. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
Happy Thursday. We continue our Catholic Connection discussions on a Thursday morning. It is June 25th, 2026 on hour number 2 of Catholic Connections EWTN Radio Extra. Thanks for tuning in. And we are going to have some fun and learn an awful lot this morning in this hour from our friend, Dr. John Cuddeback, and he has just released a new book. He's been on with us before. We brought him back for round 2 because his information is so helpful. He's with Christendom College. He's a philosopher, and his new book is The Intentional Household, Living as If People Matter. And I love the cover of this book. When you look it up online, it's published by Ignatius Press. You'll see images of the family around the dinner table with the crucifix in the background, and you'll also see the children in different rooms doing different activities. And I think it's so perfect for what we're going to discuss, because living as if people matter means that we have to be more connected versus the disconnection that's going on right now. And as I mentioned, leading into this second hour, in the previous hour, if you were listening in hour number 1, we were talking about new studies that are out showing that parents are on their devices during mealtime even more than their children. And I also mentioned earlier this week the new Toy Story movie, which is really cool, which actually takes a look at media and the way it's affected children's activities, but also the activities of the home. So it's a secular message, but apparently it's really well done. Now, I haven't seen the movie, but my nephew Andrew and his beautiful wife, our niece Erica, took the girls, the identical twins and their baby sister, to see the movie this past weekend, and they all loved it. And Erica told me, she said, Aunt Tree, it is such a good message because it's really taking a look at the whole family and society and how they're addicted to their devices. So I really want to see that when we get back, God willing, to the States. I think it'll be a good lesson for all of us. So anyway, there's 8 principles in this book, and the first time we had Dr. John on, I wasn't able to get to them because we were having such a great expanded discussion about disconnection, connection, what's happening in our culture, why has this happened, and now he's going to go through the 8 principles. So you better get your notepad ready because they're really great principles, very simple, but very, very helpful. So that's a program for a Thursday morning, hour number 2 of Catholic Connection on EWTN Radio Extra. But first, as we always do, we give you the news and the weather. So let's get started with that. Natalie Migliore reports that Venezuela is still assessing all the damage after being hit by not 1 but 2 massive earthquakes, with officials estimating thousands of people could be dead.
The U.S. Geological Survey says Venezuela was struck by 2 quakes, with the first shock reported as a 7.1 magnitude, striking less than a minute before a shock of a magnitude of 7.5. The agency warns disaster is likely widespread, especially after videos from the public show buildings in Caracas collapsing and extensive damage at the main airport. Officials are warning of aftershocks that normally follow earthquakes, urging caution around remaining structures that could have been damaged. I'm Natalie Migliore.
And another major earthquake, as Mark Mayfield tells us, in another part of the world.
The 6.9 magnitude quake struck this morning in northern Japan off the coast of Fuji. Strong tremors were felt throughout the region, disrupting bullet train services. Local reports say at least 4 people were injured by the quake, which knocked groceries off store shelves and caused minor damage to some buildings. No tsunami warnings have been issued so far. I'm Mark Mayfield.
President Trump, meanwhile, says the U.S. is ready and willing to help after the pair of earthquakes. In a post on Truth Social, the president saying he's instructed all agencies of our government to get ready to move quickly. A U.S. official also saying the country will send search and rescue teams and humanitarian supplies. And Tammy Trujillo reports that there's stress along the San Andreas fault system, and it's at a 1,000-year high.
That's according to new research from the University of Hawaii. It means that the pressure that causes earthquakes near the fault is building. Despite this, the lead researcher stresses there's no reason to be more concerned, as stress on the fault was already high and the fault's been overdue for an earthquake for a long time. This comes as a pair of powerful earthquakes struck Venezuela Wednesday, with officials estimating there's a high number of casualties and extensive damage. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
For the last 12 years, peace around the world has deteriorated. More countries are engaged in external conflicts. The number of drone attacks has increased. over 11,500% between 2018 and 2025, and the number of people killed in domestic fighting has seen a six-fold rise since 2007. That's according to information coming from the Global Peace Index. Part of the Institute for Economics and Peace founder and executive chair Steve Kalila created the index to give people, governments, and countries the information they need to concretely work for peace in the world. Vatican News is reporting it first launched back in 2007, the Global Peace Index, as an important piece of research in the world regarding the measure of global peacefulness. It brings three categories together to create the complete index: militarization, ongoing conflicts, and international safety and security. The Senate, following the House in passing the War Powers Resolution on Iran, marking the first time both chambers of Congress approved such a measure. Speaking shortly after the vote, correspondent Mitch McCann says passage is mostly symbolic because it really doesn't carry the force of law.
The Republican Senator Jim Risch, who is also the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, said this evening that whatever happens with this, it's going to have no effect. And he said Mr. Trump will not pay any attention to it. At the same time, it could be politically effective in building more pressure on the administration.
The resolution seeks to end the Iran conflict without Congress declaring war or authorizing the use of military force. The Senate vote 50-48, with 4 Republicans, Lisa Murkowski, Kentucky's Rand Paul, Susan Collins, and Bill Cassidy, joining the majority of Democrats. And Liz Warner tells us the UN is evacuating thousands of sailors now stranded in the Strait of Hormuz.
The UN's International Maritime Organization releasing a statement Tuesday saying it's begun evacuating more than 11,000 sailors who've been stuck in the waterway since the U.S. and Israel began their attacks on Iran in February. The IMO reports there are between 500 and 600 ships stranded. The statement also says the evacuations are being carried out in close cooperation with the U.S., Iran, and other coastal states in the region. It also noted the organization has secured the necessary safety guarantees and has thoroughly verified the conditions for safe navigation. In New York, I'm Liz Warner.
At the audience yesterday, Pope Leo again focusing on the importance of the Eucharist during his message in St. Peter's Square as he continued his catechesis series on the Second Vatican Council and its 1963 dogmatic constitution on the sacred liturgy. He said this sacred mystery is described in the text's second chapter as a sacrament of love, a sign of unity, a bond of charity, a paschal banquet in which Christ is received, the soul is filled with grace, and the pledge of future glory is given to us. He also recorded the Constitution's emphasis on the faithful not being passive spectators at Mass, but being encouraged to offer themselves in union with Jesus Christ. President Trump says he's canceled a signing ceremony set for relating to the housing affordability bill. House Speaker Mike Johnson speaking shortly after Trump said in a post on Truth Social that he won't sign the bill until the Save America Act is passed.
He has expressed the priority and the preference of the Save America Act. We share that. We passed it 3 times in the House.
The voting bill would require ID in order to vote. The housing bill cleared the House last night after it passed in the Senate on Monday in an overwhelmingly bipartisan vote. It would cut away some of the red tape and make it easier to build homes while also putting limits on institutional investors buying up houses. Oregon's Attorney General announcing Medicaid fraud charges against 3 people, the same day the U.S. Justice Department announced similar charges against 455 people.
Combating Medicaid fraud is about fighting for working families, protecting vulnerable Oregonians, and holding bad actors accountable when they take advantage of taxpayer dollars.
That's AG Dan Rayfield, who says a Beaverton man in Oregon is accused of housing assistance fraud, another woman charged with Medicaid billing fraud in the state, and a third woman is charged with making personal purchases with a government credit card. Since 2010, Oregon's Medical Fraud Control Unit has convicted 348 people. Wendy Swanson tells us U.S. crude oil prices are dropping as concerns over disruptions to shipping through the Strait of Hormuz are now easing.
West Texas Intermediate futures hit a session low, falling below $70 for the first time since March 2nd. International benchmark Brent crude futures for August also fell to its lowest level since before the U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran. The dip in prices comes as President Trump called for the Department of Justice to probe into fuel prices and accused oil companies of gouging customers in a post on Truth Social early Wednesday.
President Trump highlighting the U.S. economy in the run-up to to the 2026 midterms. In a speech yesterday in Pennsylvania, or earlier this week in Pennsylvania, White House correspondent John Decker was with the president earlier this week on Tuesday and says Trump will be holding more of these types of events between now and November.
Affordability is the number one issue for voters right now. We see this in primary after primary, and it's likely going to be the top issue for voters heading into the midterm elections.
In battleground Pennsylvania, the president touting his economic policies, including his tariff plan, aimed to get companies to build factories in the U.S. And President Trump will be returning to Pennsylvania next month. Republican Senator Dave McCormick announcing Trump will be attending the Pennsylvania Defense and Innovation Summit of the U.S. Army War College on July 15th. McCormick also saying leaders from defense, technology, finance, and government are expected to attend the event. Monica Nelson says authorities in Pima County in Arizona are reportedly questioning whether they made a critical mistake in searching for missing Arizona woman Nancy Guthrie.
Investigators sent just $152 of a $4 million crypto ransom, hoping the kidnappers would move the funds and reveal their location. But months later, the strategy hasn't paid off. A joint task force is still chasing digital trails through layers of proxy servers, and several persons of interest have been detained and released. With DNA leads stalling, the case is now entering its 5th month with no real breakthrough. I'm Monica Nelson.
Emerging advanced artificial intelligence has the ability to take hacking to the next level, and defending against it requires action now. That's according to a new assessment from the Five Eyes, the collective intelligence agencies of the U.S., the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The assessment out earlier this week warning that new AI models will exceed industry expectations, fundamentally transforming cybersecurity. Being prepared can't take years, the report said, but months at most. And the Department of Justice is gearing up to sue California over a new gun law.
The Department of Justice says California better be ready for a fight if they enforce a new law that bans the commercial sale of Glock-style handguns after July 1st. The feds say the law violates the Second Amendment. Several gun rights groups are also planning to sue. The law bans the sale of what's being called machine gun convertible pistols, which are basically any semi-automatic handgun. If the law is enforced and you have one, you can keep it, and sales to law enforcement and military are exempt. I'm Jason Campadonia.
And new research is suggesting folks who exercise and take in more protein than the minimal amount recommended have a higher chance for a better long-term life and health. The University of Cambridge publishing findings in the Frontiers of Nutrition, arguing current recommendations are geared to preventing deficiency, but not helping people achieve the best possible long-term quality of life. Author of the study, Dr. Chris McDonald, says high-intensity exercise and high-protein diets are less about having a beach body and more about being able to lift up, play with, and even remember your grandchildren, thanks to a strong and resilient body and mind. And finally, in our newscast on a Thursday morning, President Trump is hosting the kickoff celebration of the Great American State Fair. Speaking from the National Mall yesterday, Trump touting the virtues of the U.S. and declared that America is back.
There has never been anything like the United States of America, and together we are making it bigger and better and stronger and far more exceptional than ever before.
Folks flocking to the mall for the event that featured a series of military flyovers, the U.S. Army and Marine Corps Band, Singer Lee Greenwood, and a gigantic Ferris wheel. It was billed as a patriotic opening ceremony to launch Freedom's 250th first-of-its-kind World's Fair. It's a Thursday morning. Thanks for tuning in to EWTN's Catholic Connection, and we'll be right back.
"60 Seconds" with Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen.
The only reason of being free from something is to be free for something. Freedom, therefore, is not liberation from the truth. It is rather the acceptance of a truth. When are you really most free? When you know the truth about anything. For example, you are free to draw a triangle on condition that you give it 3 sides and not 33. You are free to draw a giraffe if you draw it with a long neck. If you do not obey the truth and the nature of a giraffe and you give it a short neck, well, you find that you're not free to draw a giraffe. Now that's what our blessed Lord meant when he said, the truth will make you free. Now, our truth, therefore, in the church is a truth that has come down to us from Christ.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
So excited to spend the next 45 minutes with Dr. John Cuddeback. He returns to Catholic Connection on a Tuesday morning this week of Father's Day, coming up, of course, this weekend. His book is The Intentional Household, Living as If People Matter. 8 principles that families can do to be intentional in the home. Dr. Cuddeback has been a professor of philosophy at Christendom College for 30 years. He lectures and writes on how to live the good life, and his first book, True Friendship, and his new book, The Intentional Household, both published by our friends at Ignatius Press. Dr. John, great to have you back on the program, and the Lord's timing is always perfect. Before we dive into the 8 principles, which we didn't have time to address last time you were on because I had so many questions for you, I just wanted to get your take on families as they relate to fatherhood, being that this week we celebrate Father's Day. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Teresa. Thanks so much. Great to be back. I love the timing, too. I absolutely do. I have to say, I really am convinced that in God's great plan that we always need to rediscover, the father just plays such a beautiful central role. The evil one knows that, and as we know, the masculinity in fatherhood has been so directly and subtly attacked. And so reordering things, restoring things is especially going to happen through men recognizing the astounding gift of their place in the home. And so I love just taking any opportunity, Father's Day, such a great one, to look again at the great gift and challenge we've got here.
Are we getting any better at this? I know you wrote this book because our families still need a lot of help, but do you think we're recognizing some of the damage that we've done already?
I think we are. And the beautiful thing is that is always the first step. As Socrates says, the worst ignorance is when you don't know what you don't know. And I think nature has been speaking here. And so I take great encouragement from the fact that more and more, again, just focusing on the men for a moment, they're recognizing they haven't had the kind of relationship with their fathers often that they so needed. And so in any case, they're asking themselves, what can we do different in our marriage, in our household, in our fathering? And that's a great sign of hope. So they're asking, are we getting better? Well, certainly in some places we are, but we've got a lot of work to do, and so let's lean into it.
Start the 8 principles. We didn't get this last time, and I'm really excited to talk to you about them. Okay, you have 8 principles, John, that families can do to be intentional in the home. Number 1.
Make household making a priority. I think it begins with kind of a new approach, recognizing this astounding reality, this gift of household has been in many ways taken away from us. Those things that, as you know, again, from your great Italian heritage there, things that just a couple generations ago could be taken for granted, can't be now. Mm-hmm. So we need to rethink the big picture. Again, especially men, but it's going on. It's wonderful complementarity, right? We've looked down our nose at women who are homemakers. We have honored men and told them they're great when they go out there and do great things out there, when they're completely leaving behind the home. And so we need to rethink, what are men and women especially supposed to be doing in their adult life, in their prime years?
Do we even know what we're supposed to be doing now?
That's the thing.
Do you think?
But we can. I don't think we do. An important. We have a sense that we need to rediscover something, but then we need some help looking. That's why I like to turn to the ancients. I like to turn to great authors throughout the Christian tradition, right up to the present day, who are pointing at. Isn't this always the way it is in life? God's gifts are right there. They're so easy to miss, and so. But sometimes we just have it's that turning again. It's that time for renewal. What is the gift of, it's written into our nature that we need to eat several times a day, that we need the kind of personal contact, especially when we're young, right? The special needs of the young and of the old. These are things that point out the reality of the nature of household and what the life there should look like. But we're going to have to look carefully.
I think it doesn't have to be too complicated, though. I mean, if you're talking about, getting back to making a priority, that could be having dinner together more than, once a week, and as opposed to grabbing, fast food, sit down and have something at the dinner table, even if you have a carry-out, to sit down and do that together, or make something with your kids on a Sunday morning, make the pancakes or the scrambled eggs, or just get together and do something in the home. It doesn't have, sometimes we just think we have to do all these fancy things, right?
Amen. I completely agree. And the good news is, it really, as the principles get a little bit more specific as they go. But I like to say, write it down. Hey, I'm a philosophy professor. I like to start at 50,000 feet. And I think that's how we work as the rational creatures we are. I like to start with kind of that idea, and reminding people we need to begin by thinking in terms of making a priority is where we're going to start. Then we're looking. Then we're ready to say, okay, well, what do we do next? Then we're in the zone, and we recognize, exactly as you just said, Teresa. It's going to be in the little things, but we're not going to notice those little things, I think, unless we're really tuned in and looking for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're continuing our discussion this morning on Catholic Connection here in EWTN with Dr. John Cuddeback and his brilliant book, The Intentional Household, Living as If People Matter. Sometimes we don't live, I love that subtitle, because sometimes we don't live as people matter because we're so connected to our technology. So number one, making the household, making a priority. Okay, what's principle number two?
Take responsibility for life in your home. And I italicize the term responsibility there because I think it's a beautiful one that, again, just I think people are recognizing what has happened to the sense of responsibility, the practice of responsibility. And my approach here is, it's no wonder our young people don't have a sense of responsibility, because we haven't taken responsibility for giving them the life they need in our homes. And if they don't experience someone taking responsibility for them and all the beautiful, the simple aspects of their life, they won't really know what responsibility is. What is responsibility if it's not a man and a woman who are married say, I'm going to first take care of you, my spouse, and this home we're crafting together, and lean into crafting our whole thing here in view of this astounding gift to the children. So it's really the emphasis there. It's just a natural progression from making household, making a priority. It's just getting a little bit more specific. We're going to have to literally take responsibility for this, because if things aren't going the way they should be in our home, that's because we're not doing something. It's not because someone else isn't doing something.
Exactly. Amen. More with Dr. John Cuddeback. He's with us for the entire 9 o'clock hour, Eastern Time, of course, here on Catholic Connection, diving deeply into his book, The Intentional Household, Living as If People Matter. And we're diving into the 8 principles that families can do to be intentional in the home. Great discussion, especially with Father's Day coming up. We'll be right back. Hope you're having a great morning. Catholic Connection, EWTN's production, Monday through Friday. Great to be with you, and great to have a very special guest back with us, Dr. John A. Cuddeback, professor of philosophy at Christendom College for 30 years, lectures and writes on how to live the good life. Of course, first and foremost, with our relationship with God and then with each other. His first book, True Friendship, and his latest book, as we just mentioned, The Intentional Household, both published by our friends at Ignatian Press. So, of course, you can find that at ignatiuspress.com or also on our EWTN religious catalog, ewtn.rc. You talked about responsibility, and as a reporter, my mind always goes to news stories and breaking news stories, and I couldn't help but think about responsibility or lack thereof when we look out, Doctor, at big stories that are making news. And it's been very, I think, traumatic to watch some of the response to the verdict in the Metcalf case and the Carmelo Anthony, who was convicted and sentenced to 35 years for the stabbing death of that young man down in Texas. And there doesn't seem to be a sense of responsibility because in the case, if you followed it at all, the suspect was black and the victim was white, but there were both African American and white witnesses that testified to what happened, and there was some pretty heavy evidence showing what occurred. And yet there were a lot of people claiming that this wasn't fair, and it was based on racism, not a young man acting inappropriately and hurting and killing another. Does responsibility, if it isn't in the home, does it spill out into society?
I really think that is the point. So much in God's plan of the basic dispositions of us human persons is what happens in the home. Especially by that plan, we're watching our parents, and in many ways it's implicit. It's not conscious, but responsible parents, and responsible in the most important ways. There, I really think it's key to see there can be a kind of responsibility that people take that's really more of a self-centered one. Well, I'm really ambitious. I'm going to make it out there in the normal terms of success. But that's not responsibility in the deep sense, which is really about taking care of people. I'm going to end up being irresponsible in taking care of people if all I ever think about is myself. So I think it's also very much, it's the me generation thing, Teresa, that's undermined really our thinking clearly at all about holding people responsible and all the wonderful obligations that we have towards others, which of course is what household's all about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so that was number 2, taking responsibility. Number 1, getting back to making the household a priority. All right, your third principle mentioned in your new book.
Make good work in and of the home the context for mutual belonging and living responsibly together. So it's all about good work.
Okay, explain.
Well, by God's design, something that we've missed, something that we didn't recognize, that the normal, ordinary aspects of the work that it takes to support human life that always was done in the household. We didn't realize that by God's loving design, that was the most normal, natural context for people to grow in responsibility, take responsibility, and live in relationship with one another. Spouses working together, parents and children working together. Where's that most happen? Happens in the home. Home is no longer a place of work. Big picture, post-industrial revolution, the work moved out of the homes. And it's progressing. More and more, we don't even have the leftovers of work that were at home. Well, normally people still cooked their meals, even though they were doing all their other work away from home. Now even that is not really being done. And we're realizing something huge is missing. It's in many ways, I think, the great key to this whole project. And it's something in our hands, but we're going to have to be savvy about it. How do we bring good work back into the daily life as in the home?
Does that mean getting children involved in more activities in the home? I'm not just talking about fun activities where they can, bake, cookies or cupcakes with the parents or sit down and play a game. I'm talking about the functioning of the home when they're old enough to do so.
I think so. I think so, Teresa. Most people have seen, anyone who has knows from experience, that the feeling, the look that comes over a child when that child was given some task, invited into the work that's meaningful work that has to do in some way with the life of the family, succeeds in it, is given affirmation. You can't put into words the experience of belonging. I belong here. I am a part. I can contribute. The work that I do is valued. It's how we live together. Those things, the child might not be able to say any of that. That's the experience, and it's profoundly formative.
Yeah. I mean, even if you let the kids, I get a kick out of this with my grandnieces. The twins, identical twins, are going to be 10 in September. The baby is 5. But they love setting the table. They love, when people come over for dinner, they're very involved in that. And they like to, even if they don't set the table perfectly, it's something that they do because it's a way of welcoming and then being involved in that dinner event.
Amen. Amen. And that's something that's they're being gently but intentionally directed to by their parents. Mm-hmm. And again, it's sometimes it's just implicit, but this is part of our intentionality, because these things that would have been so normal now, the parents of your grandnieces are saying to themselves, all right, how are we going to involve the children? Maybe it's just it was patterned for them, but for most of us, it is that we're going to have to choose that. Okay, how are we going to involve our children and give them that so human experience that your grandnieces are having?
So the responsibility then and making good work, that goes with, I would think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking of discipline, because without discipline and boundaries, none of that can be all that effective, I would think.
Amen. Amen. And it's the natural context for that, too. Imagine a child who really feels part of the program. I'm part of what we do around here. I'm trusted. I am involved in these things. Then when it comes to those more tricky aspects of discipline, there's this broader context for it versus the kind of extreme opposite of that. Just kind of picture, I'm saying from a dad's perspective, dad parachutes in, he's been gone, which is again understandable, but the children aren't really feeling a part of things, but they need to be given direction. We give them correction. It more feels coming out of nowhere rather than as part of that shared context.
Yeah. There's so many interesting stories I have from my childhood and my mom. I'll have to share one with you when I come back about post-Raisin Bran and Bobby Sherman. You remember Bobby Sherman, the pop star? I don't know if you remember him or not.
I don't. I remember the Raisin Bran, but you got to tell me the story, though.
Well, Bobby Sherman was on Here Come the Brides, and it's a funny story, but it's typical of an Italian mom when they want to get your attention, when they do something and it worked. So I'm going to tell you that story when we come back. But I want to remind people with whom we're speaking. We're having a great conversation with Dr. John Cuddeback. I specifically wanted him back on because he had so many questions. His book is excellent. What I love about it is it's so simple, but it's so deep in the sense of we look all over the place for all these different solutions. It's right in front of our faces sometimes, getting back to basics. So the book, again, if you're just tuning in, is The Intentional Household, Living as If People Matter. There's a concept, 8 principles that families can do to be intentional in the home. So far, we're doing pretty well, Doc. We've gotten through 3. Making a priority is number 1. Number 2, taking responsibility. Number 3, making good work. We'll continue talking about that with my little story, but then we'll try to plow through the other 5 principles because they're all great. We'll be right back on a Tuesday morning. It's June 16th. Stay tuned. I can't believe we're on the final segment already with Dr. John Cuddeback, his terrific book, The Intentional Household, Living as If People Matter, including 8 principles that families can do to be intentional in the home. We've gotten through 3 of them. The last one was, we had take responsibility as number 2, and then making good work at home. So, Doc, we were chatting during the break and tying this all in with discipline and boundaries. So my mom, Rosie, was a real disciplinarian, and she was more the strict one, and my father was kind of a softie. And he would always support my mom, but, he had a little bit more of a softer way of dealing with things. She was very direct, very Italian, from Jersey City, New Jersey. My father was too, but she was the strong one, really strong when it came to discipline. So one time when we were shopping, grocery shopping, had a big crush on the pop star Bobby Sherman. And I saw this advertisement that Post-Raisin Bran was going to put one of his 45s, a flimsy sample of a record, on the back of the cereal box. And so when we were grocery shopping, I stuck it in the bottom of the cart, and it made it by the cashier. She rang it up, and when my mother found out, she made sure I ate every drop, every flake of that Raisin Bran cereal, because the lesson was not to waste money, not to waste food. You got your record. You didn't ask me. You snuck it in. There are consequences. You must eat the Raisin Bran. I never forgot that my whole life.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, there's so much wisdom right there. And so often it does come back to being connected with food, and an appropriate kind of respect, honoring of it is such a deep part of human nature, and that's just so great. You know that's coming from that aspect of don't waste food. I mean, there's generations of beauty behind that.
Well, they were very poor when they were growing up on the East Coast when the family came over as immigrants from Italy, and nobody wasted food. Especially the Italians, the Polish, they used everything in their meals, and, the Irish made the most of everything. And there was a lesson. I didn't think of it that way. I wanted the record. I had a crush on Bobby Sherman, but she made me look at the bigger picture and what was more important. And I think that definitely is an art, that people have lost. Okay, number 4 in the principle zone. What are we looking at next?
Enact real leisure as the heart of life in the home. It's the other side of the coin of work. It's the other thing that we've lost. I like to kind of call this genus of activities porch time. There's so many different versions of porch time. There are these times of plenitude. They're so key in life that nobody is making for us today that we're going to have to carve out.
And do you know that, and you know this because you've done a ton of research, but there's so many interesting studies on how important this leisure is, and not to take work with you, and to even have some leisure built into every single day.
Amen. And the wisdom of our God, who demands rest, and this means rest in both the simple sense and in that richer, deeper sense of the time of plenitude. One day a week is kind of a sign of, likewise, exactly, there needs to be that little period or two, in any case, in each day. But God has commanded us, of course for our good, as always, to set aside a day of rest. And we need to tune back in and figure out how we're going to really make that active again today.
Why are we so work obsessed in America? Because it's very different in Europe. And of course, we live in Italy part-time, and they have no problem, especially in the small towns, still shutting down for riposo and pranzo from like 1:30 to 4, and then they go back to work after that for maybe an hour. But maybe they take it a little bit too far sometimes when you're trying to get something done. But the idea of slowing down and having a meal with your family is still very much a part of the culture here.
And I honestly think, even if it's not so evident now, that the proper appreciation of leisure comes from a proper appreciation of the higher things, of spiritual goods. It is so Christian to have a sense of the slowing down and stopping. Why are you slowing down and stopping? To tune into people. This is why it's living as if people matter, and the higher aspects of human life. When we're becoming more materialist, when we don't have faith in the higher calling of man, you tend to be left with work because, well, what do you do when you're sitting on the porch? You're not making any kind of material progress, as it were. So this is deeply connected to our faith, that we lean into our rich leisure.
Okay, so number 5, we're getting there with 3 more to go. Number 5.
Channel technology to the real good of the household.
There's a concept. Okay, great.
Yeah. So in a sense, this one kind of fits with bearing all the others in mind. How are we going to make a plan and execute it in both negative ways and positive ways as regards our technology? What are we going to say no to? What are we going to say yes to? Because we know what we're trying to do. And I particularly connect that to the two before it of work and leisure. Because it's work and leisure especially that technology can undermine. If always just a machine is doing it, or someone else's machine, then we're not going to have good work. Or if we're always turning to canned entertainment, we're not going to have good leisure. So we have to reckon with how technology, common forms of it, have been undermining those good forms of work and leisure.
What do you think of the UK just announcing yesterday that they're banning social media for, I think it's 16 and under, certain websites or certain, that there's a big move to really cut back on social media. I had a story about that yesterday in my news. Australia has done it, now Great Britain, other countries are looking at the same thing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I think, thank God, human nature is always speaking. And we still have some care and concern for our children, and it finally is kind of breaking through. No, we can't just do this. We can't let this be pushed upon our young people or any of us. So it's a good sign of, at times, we are recognizing God's plan, and let's do something different. But we as Christians, we've got the alternative. At the end of the day, I don't know how those measures are going to succeed if you don't have something beautiful and positive to give to the children. What else are they going to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And human nature, you can see it everywhere. It always rises to the surface. I mean, I love watching children because no matter where you are in the world, they're the same. They just love to run. They love to play. They love to laugh and engage with each other. And to get out and do something like that versus holding a phone or watching a television, I think is so much more productive in so many ways. Okay, number 6 of the principles.
Friendship between spouses. And it's just such a huge, beautiful topic that so often I've made this. I speak from experience. Concerned for my children, focusing on what to do with my children, and finally, someone helped tune me in. The best thing you can do for your children, is to work on your relationship with your spouse. It's such a simple thing, but are we really thinking intentionally about how we are deepening and growing our relationship as husband and wife?
Okay, we have 2 more, and we have about 6 minutes. I think we can do it. Number 7.
But number 7 is prioritizing forming children in the old sense, the Greek sense of the term paideia, which was the whole way you form the young to be good human persons. And it's going through different aspects of how that's kind of been taken away from us, that more we're just empowering them to do what they want to do, and rather realize we, in God's plan, have been given the wisdom, the insight, the principles, and we need to be arranging everything about life in the home to be conveying that to them.
There was a study that came out, I think it was it 2 weeks ago, I had in a newscast, in terms of how young people are still being impacted by the isolation from COVID. And I think this is a real problem still in terms of forming children. The isolation and not having the proper forming with their friends and even with their families, that is still, I think, lingering, is it not?
I'm absolutely convinced it is. And of course, we're social, and we do have to have those important contacts outside the house. But I think it's interesting, Teresa, that very often that isolation would look very different than it does if there were a thriving life inside the home. If there was a pulsing life, work, leisure, bodily presence, would simply make all the difference there.
How did our grandparents, even our parents, make it look so easy, what they did?
Well, that's very interesting that you say that. I mean, very, very good question. And we can't be discouraged. We have to trust in the Lord and recognize He's going to give us the grace in a different and more challenging situation. They didn't have some of the challenges we do. I'm not saying that they had it easily. But interestingly, that points to the very last principle, Teresa. Make the life and final years of the aging integral to life in the home. We have got to reintegrate the elderly into the center of our home life the best that we can.
The Holy Father just talked about that because he put out a big message for upcoming Grandparents' Day in a couple of weeks and talked about including the elderly, which again is something that we saw. I mean, we saw it all the time with our grandparents. They were very involved in our lives. I think we're seeing more grandparents involved in child care in terms of helping out their adult children, but it still seems to be different than when we were growing up. Is it not?
It is, and that's where we're really going to have to be savvy. We can't repeat those conditions where they tended to be just kind of more easily right there. We were in the closer communities where people tended to live closer together, and we even had still multi-generational habits of it wouldn't be kind of weird to have those aging parents there. We have to reckon with new medical needs and distance, but if we at least start with that principle, by God's design, the elderly have so much to offer us, including what they need from us. I mean, this is so divine. It's so divine that God would have it set up that as they need more from us, that's precisely a key part of how they're giving to us, and we're missing that opportunity.
There's some great quotes here that I wanted to share with you that I read in the news earlier. Pope Leo said the celebration of the World Day of Grandparents and the Elderly is an opportunity to rediscover that the Church is called to be a mother to all, and that at any age it's always possible to recognize ourselves as sons and daughters of God. He invited everyone, especially the young, to revive the beautiful custom of visiting their grandparents, elderly relatives, and even those who have no one to visit them. So basic, but so profound at the same time.
Wow, it is so beautiful. And here's another beautiful angle into it. It's saying no to one of the great lies and errors of our age. One of the great lies and errors of our age basically takes the form of prioritizing less important things. Success in the material realm, bodily pleasure, the things that the elderly tends to not have anymore. There was God's plan. It more, as you get older, these other things fall away, and you more have to focus on the interior life and relationships. You can't see as far, you can't run around, but you can still connect with people. That is an opportunity for us to connect with them and realize that, learn from them, lean into that. So it brings into play all of our fundamental principles. What do we think is most important in life?
Yeah. It's just so well done, John, with this, really. I mean, it's getting back to the basics, but helping people really apply it in practical ways. Again, the book we've been discussing, this is actually show number 2 with our guest, Dr. John Cuddeback, The Intentional Household, Living as If People Matter. And, of course, we've been discussing 8 principles that families can do to be intentional in the home. So I'm not going to repeat the 8 principles. I want you to go by the book so you can read, because there's much more detail in the book about each principle. But it's very, very good advice. How's the book doing so far?
I'm getting word of 2 thumbs up, I'm happy to say. So thanks so much for your kind encouragement.
Well, I love the practicality of it, because I think the older we get, we realize, what's it say in Ecclesiastes? Everything old is new again, right? I mean, we're going back to, as you said, the basics of who we are, made in the image and likeness of God, because a natural law works, and all the other stuff out there has been harmful. Anyway, thank you, John. Went by so quickly. Terrific job this morning. Great book. Dr. John A. Cuddeback has been a professor of philosophy at Christendom for 30 years and has great books and lectures. And again, Ignatius.com published the latest book. We'll be right back. Hope you enjoyed that interview and learning more about the 8 principles that Dr. Cuddeback proposes in his terrific new book, The Intentional Household, Living as If People Matter. And they certainly do, because we are all made in the image and likeness of God. It really is a great book. I'm so happy. I think the timing is perfect. If you think about everything that's going on out there, we just had Great Britain actually join other countries by canceling and making a ban, putting a ban out there on social media for teens under 16. That happened in Australia. It's also happened in India. It's quite a little bit of that going on. Different states are passing laws, winning lawsuits against these huge social media giants such as Meta, because it's an issue and because too many of us are spending way too much time on our devices and we are disconnected. And I love the fact that he talked in this interview and, of course, in the book about what it means to have that history in your family. We've got Grandparents' Day coming up, and by the way, Steve Ray is going to be on to talk about that. And I love the fact that the church recognizes the importance of generational living, what we can learn from our grandparents and our great-grandparents. So in our little place here in Italy, we have a wall that says La Familia Tutti, family is everything. And for whatever reason, I think this is the Holy Spirit, but Deacon Dom and I saved these very old photos of our families, and nobody else in the family wanted them, and on his side of the family, Dom just collected them. This is before we were married and even knew each other. And on my side of the family, I did the same thing. And when we got married as 2 Italian Americans, we're like, well, what are we going to do with these? Now we have them all on the wall in our kitchen here, and we look at them every day and are reminded of the intentional households from which we both came. Tomorrow on Catholic Connection, it's a Friday, which means Fact Check Friday and the Inside Word, and much more. See you then.